hand over to you, Jake.
Thank you, Mel. Quick round of applause for Mel, everyone. And she's going to try and hide from that spotlight all day, so I thought I'd grab you when you least expected it. But Melanie's been an absolute force of nature. She's provided all the chairs, the catering, the logistics, coordinated some pretty hard people to contact and get together, and me and Microbe sitting up the back and a few others, and Steve Stacey and whatnot. So mate, we couldn't have done it without you, and we really appreciate everything that Weddin Landcare's done to help everyone be here today. And the other quick nod that I wanted to have was a thank you to all you guys. I'm a busy farmer, and just by nature I'm a busy guy that overcommits to everything, and have a young girl here floating around, and this makes me realise how quickly time goes. If you see her here today, she's a lot older than that, but you've all made sacrifices to be here today, and you've all parked something that you had going on, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you for taking the time out to both come and share our story, but also just to expand your own education and put yourself out there in a position where you're connecting with new people, you're learning new things, you're getting challenged with your own paradigms and your own business context. So a nod to you guys, and thanks for coming along. I'm going to try and rush through this pretty quick, because I thought the magic of what Ernie just did was that little 10 minutes at the end. We just all relaxed a bit, chill out on the technical stuff and ask a few questions and see how we go. And hopefully that'll set the scene for later this afternoon in the paddock. We're here all day. I'm a very approachable person who loves to talk. So by all means, come and ask me questions and then walk away when I've said too much. Just like put your hand up, something like that. Welcome to Tumbleton. Thank you for coming. It's such an honour to be here with my wife Gemma sitting here, Tracy over the back there, thank you, and Bruce is hiding somewhere as well. My parents-in-law up the back, here it is. I'm going to give you a really quick whirlwind tour. Just going to drop in some things that we do. How do we put rubber on the road with this stuff? You know, some of the stuff with Ernie there about, what did we just look at? 2 drops of water. We run 2,800 acres here. And if we're doing a good job, that's actually cubic metres, not flat acres. And we just looked at 2 drops and we saw a whole heap of critters there. So Ernie and I had a quick chat in the paddock this afternoon, and we're going to go to that paddock this afternoon that you just saw tingling on the screen, that was also waving. Hopefully no one's getting dizzy. But like composite sampling, making sure our science is repeatable and effective and all this stuff, yes, it has a time and place. Yes, if we want to stand up as an academic in a peer-reviewed journal article, that's relevant. But what Ernie and I came to the conclusion yesterday afternoon was, these are just points in time. The scientific measurement and the data we're going to hopefully show you guys today is extremely accurate for that point in time and that particle of soil. And it's just given us a bit of an indication of a direction that we're heading in. You know, pull the blinkers off and we can ask all those other science questions about, is it repeatable, is it consistent, was it a composite sample on a fixed transect with a photo point 10 times over? Relevant questions, but what if today that thing was right and it showed us something that we believe to be true, and from our education experience we've seen that in the paddock and we know it's working? You know, what if it works? So I'm going to throw it up here. I've done a bit of stuff with Alan Parker recently, so I'm going to scribble down because I know it affects somewhere different in your brain. But if something comes up for you today and you're just not sure, or you say, oh, that won't work for me, can I just ask you focus on the question, what if it does? You know, what if it will work? David Goggins, the American crazy man who breaks all the records and runs through broken legs and crazy stuff. Yeah, it can't, it won't, it doesn't work at my place, I got the wrong sheep or the wrong soil type or cattle. What if it will? What if we could just tweak it a little bit and maybe it'll work? This is our motley crew. Bruce and Tracy, so grateful to be standing here today. And Gemma's system here on the far right there is all the way over in Sweden with, coincidentally, her partner Jake. So it's pretty cool, and if you took his beard and my mullet together, we're actually Bruce. But we're a pretty motley crew, right? And the thing I love about microbes and everything else we're doing here today, and looking at you guys, is diversity is the secret ingredient. So we're all pretty different people, but we've got a common goal and a common vision, and that's to make our family work and to make Tumbleton the farm work. So by all means, I'm a very open book person. I will overstep the mark today with sharing private stuff, but just curiosity, Curiosity every time, no judgment in this room, please, from anyone. We've all got stories to tell. We are humans just like you, and maybe it's the same over the fence. Mel, the mentality is bringing us back together. We're comrades in arms. So a bit of curiosity and context. This is our situation as we know it that applies here to our farm. Yours are all going to be different. And this is my interpretation of our family story. I'll try and represent our family experience as well, but this would be told totally different by Tracy, totally different by Gemma. And if Bruce was ever comfortable with a microphone, it'd be a very short, sharp presentation that would be great. Not to dwell on history, but this is some of the stuff where we just went, it's not working. This is Roundup Ready canola back in 19, I think. This is ryegrass here that's been sprayed with Roundup. It didn't work. These cattle here coming out of the drought, they have got skin and bone. We are feeding grain to them. We're trying to keep them alive. Just one of the trigger points of many. I'd imagine that most of all you guys are seeing yields decreasing, disease and pests increasing, whatever it is for your context. Just a quick insight, it wasn't working, so we started asking questions. I'm going to put a few of these up and then plug in my pointer so I'm not over here all the time, but to give you an insight into just how beautiful this place is and how privileged I am to live here and be a part of this team. It's been around a bit. 1906, purchased by Gemma's great-grandfather, and it's continued down predominantly since then the female side of the family, which I think is really cool. There's a lot of power in that. And so everyone in Young says, oh, but who's your parents-in-law? But no one knows the family name because it's changed every generation. I think that's really cool and unique about this place. But just for a minute, I wanted to go back a step further and who was here before that. It's so important to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people and our First Nation people that have at some point and some sort of nuance with what our interpretation of farming or agriculture is, have been in Australia for 60,000 years. You know, it'd be nice to think that we're the first people here and we're only dealing with the current problems, if you want to call them that. They're not problems, but it's our current circumstances based on 1906 to now and maybe a few developers and squatters before that. But like the reality is, it goes back a lot further. So our soils and minerals are and have been influenced by humans for a long period of time. And I think that First Nations inclusion and acknowledgement is really important. As a bit of a detail how we come to be here today, just sort of throw it up there to give you that context of we are a family that has our own challenges, just like all of you guys. Succession's part of that, and it's bloody hard work. We sit here today and we're going really good. It's the best we've ever gone, but geez, we've had some tough conversations. We've had some tears and some dramas and some walkouts, but for me, one of the highlights is this succession round 2 where we all agreed they were hopeless, so we walked out and it brought our family tighter together. So we actually said this company is not providing what we want as a family. And for the first time, we sort of knew with each other that we knew what we wanted as a family. And that worked. And to sack a succession planning company was a really powerful moment for us. And quickly, carbon baseline. I know it's a provocative word, something that some of us like, some of us hate. Today, I'm just going to ask you, so what if it does work? Come back there and I'll give you our context as to why we did it. And Steve's going to jump straight in behind me and give you some really specific data on what Carbon Link's seeing right now. But for us, we baseline back in March 23, and it's about a step for the next generation. So we've started succession planning here. It's an incredibly tight family value, this property, and the passion is to keep passing it on to the next generation. So if every decision we make is future focused, that's prioritised and centred around our family, we're all heading in the same direction, and that's why we as a family chose to do a carbon baseline. Our business vision is simple and productive, promoting a relaxed atmosphere and diverse plants, animals and people. We live in a beautiful landscape which is an invigorating and safe place to work. Family comes first in our business and we're actively connected and involved in our local community. That's our North Star, our guiding light. Gemma and I came up with that, doing some work with RCS. And lovely to see a few of those faces in the room and they'll appreciate just how far I've come in those short years. But this is, you know, you hit a bit of an impasse, you hit an opportunity, you hit a challenge. We come back to this. If you haven't ever done any work on values or visions, I highly recommend it. Just getting together as a team, get in an external person and then this is their jam, get a professional in to help you out. Because it's tough, but it's really powerful once you've all got that. And you know, pull back to that photo for a minute, I reckon it represents it. I'm taking photos and having fun. Vivian's pretty safe with the big earmuffs on. We've got diversity of working dogs. Everyone's hooking and having a go actively involved in our local community. Second big one I took from RCS is really understanding what is rolling rainfall. There's no such thing as average. You know, you could say we're in a 700 mm year, good on ya. This is our rainfall records on a bureau monitored station on our farm here back to 1888 on a 12-month rolling average. Do you understand what that means? So it moves forward every month. So it's not a calendar year, but if in July, I can look at the previous 12 months and say, what's my calendar average? And it moves forward every month. So we're going up here, really crazy stuff up to 1200 mil. You talked about destroying our soils more because the water pushes the oxygen out and it destroys the structure. Then we bring cattle over the top and can't get a tractor on top of it because it's in it. All the way back down here to this 200 mil. You know, there comes some challenges with this, so it's about how do we educate ourselves and learn to manage these ebbs and flows and really be flexible and agile with our business rather than saying, I'm always here on the green line. There's not many dots on that line there that have hit the green yet. And while it feels like a pretty good season at the moment, compared to the last 3 or 4 years, we're under, right? We're going backwards a bit. So hopefully I can show you some of the stuff we're doing out there right now while it looks beautiful and green. Our place is...
Jay, what was that red line for me?
Sorry, the red line, I've just pulled a 60th percentile out of that, James, so to show you everything above the line is 60th percentile. So these actual times where we do dip under 400 mil are incredibly rare, but they do happen. And they happen bloody quickly. So I sort of wanted a snapshot that if we got our conservative breeder numbers back to a level that we thought would exist in any year, what does a really bad year look like in rainfall terms? So if I went from a examples 3,000 merino ewe flock and say conservatively I want to keep 1,000 of them in every year, what are we really managing for and how bad does it get? And it also sort of puts a line there to say how frequently does it happen?
And it rebounds very quickly, it comes very quickly.
Rebounds very quickly, yeah. We're quite privileged here, right? Like this looks like a lot up and down, but you ought to see Bellingen. James did one for us there a couple of years ago, and this is 4 metres, and their low was under 200, I believe. You know, whereas let's go out to Cobar for a minute, and all of a sudden they're only jumping from 2 to 4 at best. So what's the variability in your context that you're dealing with, and what are the levers we can pull to be able to match our stocking rate to carrying capacity, or what crop do we sow based on the moisture available, and what's our seasonal outlook, and how are we managing the things we can control? So we're at 2,800 acres here, 1,100 hectares for those who talk in hectares. Just to give you an insight as to what we do and what we look like. I'm a visual guy, so I love this stuff. But ballpark, we're about 300 hectares of cropping at the moment. 90 hectares I've called restricted grazing. I spent a bit of time with the Australian Conservation Foundation last week, and I didn't put the word conservation up there because I think agriculture is conservation. I believe if we're doing it well, it's conservative. So I put restricted grazing. So these yellow zones here are all riparian zones that we've had fenced off in the past, thanks to Bruce and Tracy and working with a Landcare type grant, and we're planting 500 trees a year in each one of these blocks as a family off our own bat. And we're trying to re-establish that biodiversity and habitat pathway through our land. And we've also got some bigger paddocks here that are sort of remnant vegetation. And these 2 red ones were an LLS grant through boxgum grassy woodland protection. I've only got these in the last 2 years. Grants still exist if we thought they were gone. I encourage you just to try and step in and do the paperwork. I got $10,000 each for those 2, and we still have grazing rights on them. It's just restricted as to what times a year I can graze on them. So they still exist. About 710 hectares, the rest is grazing. The greens represent cropping, and the purple, we've just started a bit of like a perennial annual cropping sort of trial, which we're going to try and head out and visit this afternoon to try and address some issues we have going on there. The white lines, we've just invested in about 8k of 63mm blue line poly pipe. Water was one of the big restricting factors here to when we started putting everything into one big mob. And then you hit 35 degrees in summer and you got 300 cows in that mob, you need a fair tap. So we've started investing in that, both for the sleep at night factor. I have got farm bot gauges that text us now if the tanks are getting low or they drop quickly. And it's sort of trying to drought proof ourselves as well, so that in these really years where we do get a bit of rain when the rest of New South Wales is probably struggling, we're best positioned to maximise opportunities that might present in the market. Right now we're running 2,800 animals, prefer to talk in DSE, so we're not attaching identity to I'm a 2000 Merino U man, so it's 5,500 DSE for us, dry stock equivalent for those who haven't come across it. Everyone familiar with DSE if I talk really fast about it? So at the moment we have 70 cow-calf pairs. I've just been in America and I love that language. You know, I'm a rancher. 1,600 ewes, which includes the hoggets, and 1,000 lambs at the moment, which is sort of the lowest number of animals we've had in our time. So I quickly wanted to focus on specifically soil health principles. You know, come out of John Kempf, do a Nicole Masters, do an RCS, whatever you want, they've all got some similarities there. But if we start there and appreciate that these help us grow an above ground commodity that we can sell and make us profitable to enable us to keep farming into the future, all these principles actually target those little fellas under the ground we we're just talking about, and there's millions more of them than there is of everything above it. So our sort of focus has been through these RCS type foundations of do no harm, minimise soil disturbance, maximise soil cover, maintain living roots and promote biodiversity. And how do we do that? It's a lot of stocking rate to carrying capacity, and I'll jump on the next slide quickly. But this is our electronic grazing chart, my grazing we use, but we also do a manual one as well for checks and balances. I'll talk pretty quick, knowing full I'll be here all day. I'll just give you some examples as to what we're doing. But this year, a breakthrough for us was 3-week lambing. We used vasectomised ram teasers in the driest autumn we've ever had. This goes back to May, sorry, we lambed down in May. We've tried the autumn thing for a couple of years and we're just about to go back to spring. Thanks Bruce for your patience. You told us that 3 years ago. But we've done succession planning and we had the hard chats and some of us compromised and really patient and trust that we'll find our own failures and it'll be more long-term change. But yeah, 3-week lambing. So instead of having those set stocked in mobs of 200 is what we're aiming for, a Merino U sort of operation with 30% white Suffolk over them. We're back to only about 5 weeks in those paddocks. That's revolutionised us, and in the context of a really tough autumn where we had really low grass levels and we wanted to get them straight back on barley as quick as we could to keep them coming forward. So it was a really short, sharp drop off in the autumn here, which I think everyone might have felt who's in this room. Very different on the east coast or a bit further west than Victoria, but in this room. So we missed the opportunity to destock these ewes because they were 30 days from lambing. So we had to make it work. And the barley feed input paradigm was really tough for me. I'm regenerative and I don't feed. I've done the numbers and it doesn't work and I just put my head in the sand. And I love my wife and I'm so proud of her accountability. She did the numbers and it does work, and actually we had no option. We got them to a point of landing where we couldn't go backwards and they needed energy. Don't half-ass it. If we're going to do regen ag, don't half-ass it. You own animals, we have an ethical responsibility to those animals, and it's your profit at the end of the day. So we put these guys on barley as soon as we could coming out of that, a little bit of oats going in to make sure they were trained onto it because we hadn't fed for so many years. They actually didn't know how to eat grain. But we came straight back out of that, straight back onto a rotation. And you'll notice here we're boxing all these different colours. So each line is a different paddock, we're all familiar with that. And then I've got time going this way. So 3-week lambing, all different mobs, and then we start bringing them all back together. And we're just doing really short, sharp grazes. Each little block is 1 day. So as soon as we got them back on the march, we're marching them really quick and trying to maximise green feed. Other things that we've tried that I think give a nod to microbe-friendly farming is those adaptive rest periods throughout the season. We've done a bit of the accordion thing where our non-growing season, let's pull out to a 120-day rest period. Growing season, you'd say right now on phalaris pastures, let's push it into 45 days and have a war on phalaris. I learned a few things that year. But there's an element in that. Does it suit your context? We've played around with it a bit, and it's so seasonal. It depends on your stocking rate, what your stock classes are. Are you trading or breeding? How many mobs do you have? How many paddocks do you have on water points? Rest periods are something just to continue playing with, in my opinion. What we've learned, we're sticking with at the moment a 100-day rest period, even in this growing season. We're playing with going through to and not being scared of the lignification in phase 2. We're actually going to let it rip. So we believe coming out of succession into regenerative ag, we've still got a bacterially dominant soil, which thrives on simple carbons. By letting our grass go lignified and not being scared of long grass and jungles, we're going to add some complex carbons into those systems. And when we then come back through with our big mob to trample it down and incorporate it, I believe it's going to give the fungi a competitive advantage coming forward and help reset our system. We also think while it looks really green out there right now, there's not a lot of moisture in that profile. So if we jump into a 45-day rest right now and hammered our grass on a pretty hard spring graze, we're worried what the consequence might be in 3 months' time. If we stick on a 100-day rest period, we know exactly what feed we've got in front of us. We can step in and out of trades as we please based on the grass budget and the rain forecast and what the market's doing. So conservative pasture management to that nod, good lead in, Jake, is that Gemma is so dogged and I love her for it, engineering brain. She will always prioritise soil health over profit pressure. If we think we can get that trade to the end and sell the perfect on-spec animal, but our grass doesn't add up, we sell it. So the first priority for any stocking rate decisions on our place is, do we have the grass right now? We do not think about the profit, the end point, making sure it meets the perfect spec. What if we hold on just another month and get that lamb from a sucker to a weaner, or bump him up from a 400 kilo steer to a 450 kilo steer? For us, we're not interested in that. We just sell him straight up. If our grass is gone, our grass is gone. Priority in our soil health, and we believe that long term, we're spiralling up. We don't ever want to take our soil health backwards, so we'd rather leave a bit of roughage and a bit of grass in the paddock. For us, that's like leaving a bit of 100 grand deposit in your bank account and just letting it grow, and you're ready for the next opportunity. Rather than grazing that paddock a little bit harder and just hoping that you might earn an extra 20 or 30 kilos on a steer or an extra 2 kilos on a lamb, just to get the right spec. Get really clear on what your drivers are, and so we sell based on grass budget. Ernie already gave it a nod. Avoid herbicide, pesticide, fungicides. Do no harm is the principle there. What's the cost in your bank account? What's the cost on your soil health and possible benefits from all those microbes? We do still spot spray a few Bathurst furs here and there, and we do use some knockdowns in cropping situations, but the word there is avoid.
Jade, the cost to your health too, and the health of your kids.
Yeah, human health is a really big part of that, right?
Yeah.
Huge part of that. And are we actually following the safety instructions on the label, which are questionable at best? But it's not a do not spray. So I'm not exclusive here. I try not to be judgmental. It's a toolbox that we all have access to at any time. Just be really eyes wide open when we make those choices. So avoid is my word. Flirt. We co-graze sheep and cattle together. Hopefully we'll get out and show you that this afternoon. I think there's a benefit in that for our microbes under the ground, and certainly a pasture utilisation type benefit. We found cattle on their own in the really long phalaris spring growth. We end up with really sharp tussocks, and sheep on their own in those really wet years with phalaris type stuff. We got tunnels underneath, and they grazed out all the clovers and forks and stuff, and the phalaris never got touched. So that co-grazing gives us a bit of pressure, a bit more of a uniform graze. You're getting the two types of manure, two different rumination processes for those microbes and dung beetles, and hopefully sort of even pressure on the diversity of your pasture sward as well, rather than preference on one over the other. I also think right now it's worth mentioning, I believe it contributes to a lower bloat risk. The only bloat we've really had in the last couple of years is if a cow gets in front on her own or jumps a fence and she's on her own, she'll eat the clover. Like it's chocolate eclairs, the cattle, right? And you've come back the next day to move the other 2,000 animals into that paddock and she's feed up. But if we put everything in at once, the sheep are going in there and putting pressure on, and it's not pure, non-selective grazing in the ultimate, but it's definitely putting some competitive pressure so they can't just go clover, 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 clover. We do drill in a bit of pasture cropping now and then. Context specific, do we have seed in the silo? What are we trying to achieve? What's our objective? Is it a monoculture or a weed succession reset or a phalaris type thing? Or are we literally, just got a bit of seed left over, throw it in the spreader and drive around and see what happens? Be experimental, but be clear on what you're trying to achieve. We've just done 2 years of summer cover crops, having a crack at them with mixed success. Depends on each paddock is different, each soil type's different, and summer storms, as you know, are incredibly variable. So this season just gone, not so successful, but it was in a pretty tight, poor paddock. The year before, we jagged it in November, and we had sunflowers and got bloody miles of grazing out of it. It was amazing. Bit of an opportunistic thing, but I think there's a bit to add there from those C4 photosynthetic pathways with our summer species. Are completely different root exudates and the volume of root exudates than you're going to get from your winter type grasses that use the C3 photosynthetic pathway. So sunflowers and sorghum and millet are going to be pumping faster and more of a different type of sugar into the soil, and if that's our long-term investment into our free fertiliser and our soil nutrition productivity potential, why not try and add them into your system if you can do a bit of a cheap thing, grab some bird seed or whatever's cheap and easy.
So just quickly, your approach for those summer opportunities is that are you just drilling straight into a paddock, or are you spraying out beforehand, or?
Yeah, good question, Ken. There's a real cost driver there, so we try and do it cheap as possible, with no fear of failure. So we no spray, no fert. And last year, or the first year we did it, we'd actually cut hay. So we had a paddock that we were a bit concerned about summer cover, so we drilled straight in and had really easy trash clearance with it. We used a tine air seeder, FlexiCoil. Yeah. And last year we actually had a bit of seed left over, so we threw it in the broadcast spreader and just drove around. And then jagged an inch of rain on it that night. Yeah. It actually arguably ended up more successful than the one we'd say into a cropping paddock, just driving around. So probably my advice there is just watch your budget and watch your goal. And for us, it was to do it as cheap as possible and just to try and play with it and have a bit of fun with it. Paddock sizes and water points, for me, I think they're the option, they're the lever that we can do different trades, different times of year. We can play with density of animals, we can play with rest periods and trades and everything else. And if I had my time over, I'd spend a lot more money and focus on water points. I think fencing is something we can play with later in life, and we can turn water troughs on and off that would have the same effect. Or we can get right into low stress stock handling and shepherding and actually park animals in a place that doesn't need a fence. All of a sudden we're learning how to manage long grass, and our cattle aren't hungry and trying to push and go wandering, and so if I did my time over, I'd spend a lot more money on water and a lot less on fences. But where we are today, we're still heading further down that road. And I think there's still some more efficiencies to be gained there. Biofertiliser is something quite new for us, but seems a really cost-effective way to start playing with chemistry, mucking around with your own fertiliser at home. You can get it down to less than $1 a litre, not killing your labour. But it's a fermentation process we can do at home based on kefir, the liquid yogurt you can buy at Woolies and Coles. And then we just brew it out with molasses and milk powder, and we add some minerals to it. And it's basically, like Ernie said, it's a microbial digestion process. So we can put out the same level of minerals, but now they're really highly available to the plants in our system. They're not coming in with any caustic or sharp edge type effects that are going to cause acidity issues and possible death to our microbes. But we're still putting some fertiliser onto our system that may have had farming pressure on it for 60,000 years. And that's had all that rainfall and all the soluble nutrients have either been leached and washed away or moved with our rainfall over 60,000 years and more. What most Australia is a 2 million year old soil. So rain's had a fair influence as well. So biofertiliser, I think, is a really cool thing to start playing with and get experimental. We did the course with David Hardwick, Soil Land Food, highly recommend to look him up. Pack Colby minerals, supplement our cattle. Again, sort of environmentally available minerals There's a brew, it's out on the table out there if you've never seen them before, but just a mix of, based on 6 parts dolomite to 1 part copper sulfate, sulfur, seaweed meal and salt. I think that's providing what our ruminants need in terms of a mammal's metabolism, but it's also a little nod to what's our soil limiting factors in this particular soil type. And the other one there is never stop learning and experimenting. Things we've tried, we just keep trying new stuff. I'm addicted to learning and courses and trying stuff, and here you are today, and hopefully we keep doing that for the rest of our life. I think this is arguably the hardest thing to achieve in regenerative grazing, holistic management, whatever you want to call it, but matching stocking rate to carrying capacity is bloody tough, right? Like whether it's not really hard and fast and just turns up and you don't suspect it, or you get a little bit complacent because you've had a couple of good years or a couple of tough years and you're stuck in either a wet mindset or a dry mindset. But we're also emotionally attached to our animals at some point, and the scale doesn't matter. The gravity is still the same in selling your favourite animals or selling what you've attached your identity to. Can be really challenging. So I just wanted to pull these up here, and again another nod to my wife. But this is my grazing at the top here. So we do run that system, and DSC days per 100 mil is the green line there. And we try and run to this black line, which is a benchmark of 500. So it varies with how much rain we have. And this one is like our stocking rate line, the green, and the blue being our rolling rainfall and what it does. So you'll notice they sort of mirror each other a little bit because this stocking rate is per 100 mils of rain. So it's automatically adjusting for our rainfall, if that makes sense. These little blue bars are actually our monthly rainfall. But something's not right. So checks and balances, get out in the paddock, have you done a grass budget? What's it look like when you move that mob, and does it reflect the software you're using? Someone first told me when I first started doing this was don't get lazy. You know, you still got to be in the paddock, grab the paper chart out if it works, have an accountability system in your business, or get on, you know, an executive link type program where you've got some accountability. Talk to a neighbour who does it the same way, or a community group, or a local grazing group with Midlock, Landcare. This one's Gemma's chart. So I run this one and it looks pretty hopeless and wild, and I'm a bull at a gate and pretty strong Rick's appetite. So I'm saying, why don't we buy 500 cows now? And that's me, if you know me well, like let's up. This one's Gemma's. And trust that I know my wife well, she's usually right. And that's not a nod to happy wife, happy life. It's that she is usually right, and I'm usually really speculative. And I'll get there. But the interesting part about this, we're sitting here, right, September, October. And hopefully this chat might come up there later. But the other really hard part with stocking rate to carrying capacity is what part of the growing season did your rain fall in, and what's the breeding cycle? So we've deliberately we've gone up here, really hard, fast autumn that just cut out. We had to make some hard decisions. We couldn't sell pregnant ewes, so we sold 7 pregnant cows. They were beautiful cows. We'd already classed out the worst 30 of them that had already been classed out before that. So it was pretty tough, but we had no other choice based on the enterprises that we had at the time. But we've made a decision not to restock. So we're probably the lowest stock numbers we've had in a long time, because we're now grazing our winter grass reserves. Our green date here that we've calculated for when the spring flush really starts growing is September. It's 7th, 15th of September. So our grass didn't start growing until here. So while we look like there's an opportunity here to increase our stocking rate, we're not going to rush into it because we don't think our grass budget in the paddock matches it. And we also don't think that the moisture is actually there in that profile yet. And if we wanted to keep going down excuses, the market's a bit silly at the moment. There's not a real opportunity there. And don't be scared of long grass. Like so many people are just like, oh, this is here, like I'm losing out on profit and it's a waste of grass. What about the underground livestock? Let's just have it sit in the paddock, have it ticking away, do its thing. It's not going to disappear. It's there and ready for when the opportunity presents itself in the market. We can step in really fast and really hard. and know that we've got grass in front of us.
Yeah, I can't comment on that too, that, yeah, probably learnt the hard way not to assume that we're gonna get average rainfall next month. So, yeah, when I forecast that, say for October, November, December, I've got that in as getting no rain for those months. Just so that I feel confident that we've got enough grass ahead of us to hold what we've currently got.
What do you work on for your summer budget? Like, are you trying to get to, like I know for us, past couple of years, we've been trying to go into that summer period, knowing that we've got enough grass to get us through till autumn,
Yeah,
or that month into autumn, really.
yeah, that's
Which
not-
is, yeah, it's a challenge, but
I think that's very sensible. I like to see at least 90 days of grass ahead of us.
yeah.
And I go out also to the highway to go out monthly and do a grass budget. So look at how much grass I've got, then am I going to be able to, for my grazing plan, am I going to be able to get through, like we usually do sort of 80, 90 day rotations? Have I got enough grass to sustain that 80 day rotation?
Yeah.
The development of our enterprise mix here is probably a little due to that question as well, that we've cut our breeder numbers back so that we don't have our favourite animals that have genetic capital that we need to keep in all seasons. We trade quite a lot of cattle now mainly. We've played with sheep and found it hard to be profitable, but a lot of cattle, so the first thing to go in our place is the trade cattle. So we've sort of also got destocking exit ramp A, exit ramp B, exit ramp C at all times, and really prioritising our stock classes for what's the first out the gate, what's the second out the gate.
Yeah, and you try and, if you're going out to buy 50 steers, you want to know that you've got, enough grass in the paddock, I suppose, to finish them. So you might be looking at what about 0.7 over the whole year, but if you buy them in the spring, they're going to do a kilo. How am I going to get them to weight? How many days is that going to take?
And then a nod to our cropping sort of development and transition and where we're going. I've shown this one before, Maddie, and I just added an extra one with this year sort of thing. But yeah, happy to come back to it because I'll keep moving pretty quick. And I know this is very complex for people that haven't sort of been in the big no-till type worlds and stuff like that. But we went from a pretty traditional canola commercial seed purchase that's got fungicide and all the jazz on it. We did have fulvic acid in with our knockdown, but it's a monoculture, no grazing opportunity because it's a grain canola. Rada. We played with a bit of stuff. We did a heap of education. Gemma and Bruce both did the regen cropping module with RCS and come right back to principles-based stuff that we touched on with the soil health stuff before. So somewhere where we're sitting now, to give you an idea, and we'll go to the cropping paddock at Savo, is we did some knockdowns this year with fulvic acid and some not. And said, right, let's see if we can see a difference. Let's see what the budget difference is. Let's see what the ryegrass pressure is, because we have a lot of ryegrass pressure. We've coated with biofert that we brewed ourselves this year with a compost tea to try and give us both our microbial stimulants, but also a bit of nutrition there to help germination in a really available format to that really young seedling. We used a combination of red wheat, Illabo wheat, vetch and canola for some diversity, and the ones that didn't have knockdown obviously have a fair bit more diversity as well, and just for fun we always have ryegrass, so it's there as well. Pretty late start this year for us, a really dry start. So we didn't get anything in January and February. That was a conscious choice of us. We waited until sort of later into May and just to see what happens, but it's had an effect on our crops this year. And our fert mix this year was 40 kilos of MAP with 10 kilos of calcipril, a granulated lime product, straight down the tube with 1 kilo of fumate. And I haven't put it on there, Bruce, but we did add liquid inject to our Flexicoil this year as well. And we put 10 litres of the biofert brew straight down the tube into the furrow as a liquid, which is a pretty cool innovation thanks to Bruce's hard work putting all that retrofitted onto the seeder. And our options are possibly mixed seed harvest, possibly grazing, possibly hay. The best part about it is possible for anything, and that we're all open to that flexibility. I'll run through some cool results that I've just seen. I think this might give you a nod and sort of head towards the quick carbon chat next as well. But a test is only a moment in time. It's only one spot in a paddock, and we could all look for other things. But I just retested 2 paddocks 2 years later, from July 23 to September 25. This is a microbe-wide test based out of Adelaide that uses a bit of DNA, a bit of enzyme analysis, and a bit of PLFA, phospholipid fatty acids, to determine what is both the species of the microbes in the soil, but also what's their function and the food web complexity. So we look straight up at total microorganisms. It's gone from 10.5 to 24.4 in 2 years. So with the more living things in our soil, what I heard from Ernie is that we get 1 free nitrogen thingy for every time something is eaten. If we've just more than doubled that, we've just doubled our productivity potential, yeah? Free fertiliser. The total fungi in our soils has gone from 6.3 to 18.4. That's a 3-fold. For me, what I heard and what I know to be true of fungi is that they're calcium and phosphorus accumulators. 2 key limiting nutrients in our system. We're really low phosphorus soils here, and we're really low calcium soils, so that's a tick in the box, and I haven't paid any money to get it. It's just a consequence of our management decisions. And fungi are also the ones that are going to provide the structure and the scaffolding in our soil. So that's how the soil breathes and how the soil drinks. So the more fungi in our soil, the better we are. And I'm a huge fan of that. Mycorrhizal fungi, if you wanted to get really specific, the one that attaches to the roots and helps out, we're going from 1.8 to 5.8. So they're the ones that if every root hair in your soil can extend out tenfold into the system and have surface area that's tenfold greater, and that surface area is the site of all exchange of nutrients and water and air and production. You know, if mycorrhizal fungi are the best thing that can do that right now, we've just taken it from 1.8 to 5.8. The 2-fold total increase in total population, total living things in our soil, we just doubled it. What if you could take a 2 kilo per head per day weight gain on a steer and double it? What if you could take a 5-ton wheat yield and double it? Like, it's a pretty significant change. 3-fold on fungi and 3-fold in mycorrhizal.
And sorry,
Can you see that, like, in the paddock?
Yes, I can see
You
it,
can see
yes.
it.
Yeah, I didn't put photos up here today because I thought we'd throw a shovel in the paddock, but what I've seen to be true is darker colour, richer smell, and a lot lighter soil. So pastures now, the shovel's going right into full depth. I can pull it up, it's light and crumbly, there's a lot of air in it, aggregation in it, it's breaking apart.
so you could just describe like the key management decisions you made to achieve this in 2 years, like what the
Yeah,
will actually
So
did
low-
with the paddock?
low skein paddock came out of, it was the Roundup Ready resistant canola one right at the start.
Yeah, okay, that's the one, yeah.
We basically cold turkeyed out of cropping there because it wasn't working, and we didn't have whatever a really good commercial pasture budget is right now to spend on it. So what we did, I think, is just grazing management. We let the weeds do their job. We didn't spray any weeds in that paddock. So we had skeleton, fleabane, Bathurst burr, the whole lot, just went mental, and it's really ugly.
So you came out of that canola phase and you just did nothing.
Yep.
Like
I
didn't
think
pay
we
any-
sowed some oats.
And then the following winter, we pasture cropped this paddock a couple of times.
Okay.
So we drilled in a bit of oats the first year, I think. The
Yeah,
second
right.
year, it was every leftover bag of seed we had in the shed,
Okay.
which would have had some goodies and some baddies attached to that. But it's just diversity and a bit of, I think there's a nod to disturbance there not being a bad thing as well, a time machine and opening it up. As well as no spray, no knockdown, no nothing. And we were still grazing this paddock. It's a large paddock, it's hard to get a like Phalaris type graze out of it, but we were still grazing it in our rotation. It was just short, sharp grazes with big, long rest. So I think it sort of fixed itself, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was ugly. There's times you go
Yeah.
out there and you think, oh my god, what are we doing? Like, this is not productive. But then, yeah, we were still grazing it. And when you look at that and seeing the changes in it in those 2 years, there's sort of grasses, it's getting perennial grasses in it now. It's, yeah. And think it's been worthwhile.
Definitely, thank you, good question. I do talk quick and forget. For those interested, I thought why not go into the soil test results as well, just to give you a double whammy if you're not quite sure that microbe one floats your boat or you're not sure what it means in reality. This is a total mineral test, and I'm happy to, we'll try and work with Mel to send out an email to everyone, and I'll attach the mineral test to the email. But I just pulled these off an EAL total test. So really interesting, cation exchange capacity is, you know, that sand, silt, clay components in your soil of total exchange sites. The higher that number, the more fertility exchange sites you have. We're pretty low soil, right, at 3.4 and 3.3, two different paddocks now. Wombat is only grazing native pasture. Low Skeen's the one that we played with some pasture cropping and grazing and lots of weeds. So our cation exchange capacity has gone up. Our fertility potential in that soil has gone up. You know, they say the only way you can change this in a pure chemistry sense is to add clay particles to your soil. What if biology can do that and carbon and humates can do that for us? And I think the data's starting to stack up. The pH has gone up and started to neutralise from being very acidic at 5.7 up to 6.29. I'd love to see it come up a little bit more, but again, there's been no line put on these paddocks. Soluble magnesium I threw up there just because it was the single biggest change, gone through the roof. I didn't think we needed it too much looking at a purist chemistry sense, but the nature said it did. So it's worked, it's gone up 170% and 194%. The interesting ones I think in the real regen world, and if you're looking at balanced and holistic nutritional requirements, calcium and phosphorus seem to keep coming up. So our calcium came up 150% in soluble calcium. So that's like an acid extraction type process, what can the plant get, but it also came up in total. So now we start asking questions about what's a soil test actually measuring and what's its constraints? Can it actually measure what is physically there right now, or is it just a little measurement that gives us an indication of what possibly is there? And if that is true, can microbes increase what's in our soil? And for me, that's saying yes. Phosphorus, I think, is really interesting. Again, another one that keeps coming up, that we're mining it in regen type systems. I think it's really interesting, I'm trying to be honest, it went down in the wombat paddock that's a native pasture that has very little weeds. It's more a mycalina, red grass, phalaris and a bit of other stuff, heap of clover. But low Skeen, the really sour cropping paddock with a heap of weeds, it's actually gone up. Organic matter is probably an easier word that most of you might be more familiar with than carbon, but it's gone up 145%, 176, and sulphur is a bit of a no-brainer there because 90% of it's in your organic matter. So the more organic matter you've got in your soil, the more sulphur, and that proves it, right? Sulphur was the really big mineral, anecdotally talking to people this autumn, that the cattle and sheep were just sucking up out of mineral troughs. You know, we cannot make an amino acid chain that makes a protein without a sulfur molecule that binds the first two amino acids together. It's key. And if we've ever used canola or a brassica in our system, they're mining it out pretty heavy, so we've got to start putting it back somehow. Without a And then the real regeners in the room, if you've been there, but this is a Haney test. So just thought, why not throw the 3 different tests out there and see what's possible, try and be a little bit scientific, even though I've only taken a snapshot of 2 different paddocks at a moment in time. But a Haney test does talk to respiration that Ernie mentioned, so microbial respiration. How many things are in that soil living and breathing is what they're sort of trying to measure in layman's terms. It's gone up 257, nearly 400%. A Haney test then uses a really mild organic acid, so more of replicating what a plant root hair and then the microbes actually are sort of applying a really mild acid to the nutrients in our soil profile to make them available to grab and absorb into the plant root. So they're sort of saying this is possibly a more accurate version of what's plant available than the soluble or extractable tests you might see elsewhere. It's how the Haney sort of stuff comes about. But what I found really interesting is that this one we actually pasture crop and we let the weeds grow has done better across the board than the one where it's just native pasture and just grazing management. You know, I wonder what role do weeds really play in our soils, and what role did that bit of disturbance play with scratching in some oats or scratching in some diversity. And really cool to see where this goes in the next couple of years, and trying to start experimenting with that theory. But without these two tests, I can't even talk about that stuff because I don't know what's happening. So I didn't take 300 samples across 3,000 acres. I just took one in one paddock and one in another paddock. Every 2 years, go back out and do it again and see what's happening at your place, and then start to develop some theories and ideas about how to go forward.
Did you take note of what specific weeds were in that paddock?
Oh, I have
As in
photos and stuff.
Broadleaves, taproot,
Really diverse.
yeah,
Good question. Predominantly skeleton and flea vane
yep.
in that one, and even wireweed. And then depending on the location within the paddock and the stock camps, there's a heap of Bathurst burr and marshmallow type stuff wherever they congregate.
Yep.
And do the manure weed type stuff. And again, probably the other little difference here is starting to get curious with your soil type. So this one does have a little bit more clay in it, a little bit more clay. This one's a little bit sandier, a bit more granite soil. So they say the opportunities for fast change is greater in brittle type environments where it's more sandy than it is in clay kind of thing. But it just gives me an opportunity and access to experiments now.
It'll be interesting, Jake, like Jake's, with the grant funding we got and his own hard labour, he's just flipped that wombat paddock as well, so hopefully, so we can get some more density and maybe some better rest periods on it. So I'm interested to see if that changes.
Yeah, I could spend all day there. Come and ask me questions.
Just out of curiosity, how are you doing your decision making? As a whole family, or is it the two of you doing it, and are you on some discipline program, or?
Yeah, great question. We try and meet monthly as a full 25% shareholder equal. We've got a unanimous policy sort of thing. We're not a majority rules. We all have to agree, and we do it in town at the library. Get off the farm. Don't let anyone have the dining table advantage, and no distractions, right? There are no dogs or kids or anything running around walking through. And it started as just a really basic round the grounds, what are we doing? And we keep doing it, and over the last 2 or 3 years now, it's something that we all crave. We're like, shit, I don't know what Bruce is up to. I could go and annoy the crap out of him, or just say, hey guys, when's the next meeting? We all need to catch up here again. So it's become a really good calibration tool that we're not communicating, and it's the access to it, that all 4 of us do it at the same time. So it's not lost in triangulation. And we do have roles and responsibilities split up on the farm sort of thing, and so that we're not overlapping and double guessing each other. But Bruce is cropping manager, I sort of do livestock paddock type management. Tracy does bookkeeping and tree cleaning projects for us, and accountability, and Gemma does our CEO type stuff and budgeting, forecasting and marketing, and then holds all of us accountable to the plans that that we all agree to, and we forget, and we start winging it in the paddock. And so I think without that monthly round table with all 4 of us in town, we try and keep it to 1 hour so it's not painful. Like I said, time limit, put some pressure on yourself. This is not chit chat. Like, get into it, get it done, then get out the door. Pressure release, stock handling, and then we all try and go and have lunch in town together as a family, and then kind of celebrate and have a good feed, and then have a laugh about what you did on the weekend or the local town politics, to sort of literally pressure release sort of thing. Get in and do the work and communicate with each other straight to the business. This is a farm meeting, not a family meeting. Then go and have lunch together. That's a family yarn. Catch up with each other and get on from there. We did the executive link program with RCS for 3 years and graduated from that in October last year. So Gem and I had a lot of discipline throughout that, just the 2 of us, and that would drive a lot of our sort of direction and structures. But yeah, right now we're just doing it that way as a family of 4. I'll quickly bring it home and throw over Steve-O for 20 minutes before we jump into lunch. But yeah, I want to challenge you all to really sit in this what if with carbon. So we signed up, you've seen our little girl Vivian kicking around here. We're obsessed and dedicated to succession planning, and we think this is an opportunity for our next generation. So carbon mapping, the whole place, we're not going to go into details here today and the intricacies and all the bullshit that goes on with carbon banter and debate. So I just want to tell you some really hard facts about what we're doing, what we're dealing with, and Steve's going to tell you the sequestration rates they've measured. So our farm is 1,100 hectares, but by the time they cut out all the rocks, remnant veg, these are road easements, crown land easements, that's a gas pipeline, this is a creek, we're back to 792 hectares. So you can't have a carbon project on everything you own because there's no carbon under this shed. But we've done it all as one project, we own it, Carbon Link is our team that we work with. They're really big numbers, right? They're hard to get your head around, but let's just dip our toe in the water, you might not get it, but I'll introduce it. The really hard part is that we're trying to measure 74 tonnes of carbon per hectare in 12,500 tonnes of soil. So on our total project, at the moment, we're running 1 million tonnes of soil and they're looking for 58,000 tonnes of carbon. 10 million tonnes of soil and they're looking for 58,000 tonnes of carbon. That's pretty tough. So ours, overall, from 0 to 1.2 metres as a cumulative, that is broken down in Steve's stuff between 0 to 30 as a topsoil and 30 to 1.2 as subsoil. But from 0 to 1.2, full profile, our average carbon is 0.59%. And the other really interesting part is this variance piece. So how do you measure across 790 hectares where you're looking at 10 million tonnes of soil to get really low variance between those different cores, because that variance there will be subtracted off any credits we ever get issued. This goes into emissions. If in doubt, it's an emission. We don't get nothing for it. So that's really cool, and that's something that I think, and I can say, I told him not to beat any commercial drums, but I can say that's Carbon Link's flag in the ground. Really low variance. They know their shit and they've done it well. So we had 99 core samples. That rod on the table there is one. There's one up on the wool table behind Dowdy. And they're just statistically random across our whole place. This is every single sample taken on our place. Depth from topsoil to 1.2. Carbon percentage across the bottom here. That's one, that dotted line is 1% carbon. So as you'd expect, the topsoil has more carbon in it, more organic matter, and the deeper you go, the less it gets. But also we go from, say, about 0.8% all the way through to 2.6%, somewhere on our place. So with all the variation between those things, to get the total variance in our project down to 2.3 is the feast of this month. And the really cool thing that Carbon Link do. So Steve's going to talk specifically to that. We're sort of 2 years in the baselining. Give me one more minute and I'll pull it 2 years in, so I can't wait to come back and resample and see where we go. But all those little tests that I've done in between only cost me about $900 compared to our sampling there cost us $90,000. As a family, we made a choice that that's an investment in our future. So really cool to see the stuff Steve pulls out. Finally, I wanted to leave you with what excites me right now. And the really cool part was putting this yesterday on our family WhatsApp chat, and Bruce said what excites me is seeing the family farm going ahead in more environmentally sustainable ways while profitable. So that's a really cool statement, but I think the really cool part about that is that I had the guts to ask and Bruce had the guts to reply, and that's, I think, something quite new for us. Because for me, what excites me is seeing how bloody simple this can be. I've grown up a lot in the last 5 years and I've slowed down, but you can tell I'm a bull at a gate, I'm complex. There's some RCS and mentors in this room that have been smacking me on the forehead for a while, but complex doesn't need to be complicated. Simple doesn't mean easy. But ecological magic is what's possible where everything is compound growth, including your own happiness. So a bit of patience, a bit of happiness, and everything is heading in the right direction, including our family communication, our family happiness, and our soil health, fertility, and everything that we produce from there. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.